Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Collision review. AEW Collision was from the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the show just ended. And AEW Collision tonight, I thought the show was very mid, in my opinion. Wasn't the best Collision, but was just a mid show, in my opinion. But tonight on Collision, we had the Acclaimed. They have taken on Iron Savages. They were formerly known as Bear Country. This was Bear Bronson and Bear Boulder. We also had Mercedes Martinez and Diamante versus Willow, Nightingale and Kris Statlander. Samoa Joe ended up taking on Andrew Everett. The TNT Championship was on the line where Luchasaurus defended the title against Brock Anderson, Arn Anderson's son. It's been a while since we've seen Brock Anderson on TV. And in the main event, we had the AEW World Trios Championship on the line. House of Black, Buddy Matthews, Brody King, and Malachi Black defended the titles against CMFTR. CM Punk and FTR. But overall, AEW Collision was just a very mid-show tonight, in my opinion. But anyways, let's jump right into the review. AEW Collision opened up with Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring, and he bought out Ricky Starks. So Ricky Starks got some boos from the crowd there in Greensboro. Starks made his way down to the ring, and Tony Schiavone ended up pointing out that the belt that Ricky was worn by Ricky the Dragon Steamboat last week. Of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was the referee in Ricky Starks' match last week on Collision. So Tony Schiavone ended up talking about how Ricky Starks beat Steamboat with his own belt. Schiavone then announced that Starks has been suspended for 30 days because he ended up beating Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Because, of course, Steamboat was an official referee. So Starks got on the mic. He ended up saying because Steamboat cost him the match, he had to whip his ass. Starks ended up saying that he figured he would be suspended and that he went and got a manager's license and that he will be on the show each and every week. Starks ended up saying that you don't have to like him or love him, but you have to respect him. Starks then told Tony Schiavone that if he looks at him again, he will whip Tony Schiavone's ass. Starks ended up saying that he can live with an L from last week, and that CM Punk is not him. So the fans were booing Starks. Starks ended up saying that he is going to set the company on fire and bring a war next week to the front door. So that was what Ricky Starks had to say, and that was how the segment ended. But Ricky Starks, though he delivered a good promo tonight here, he ended up getting a manager's license so that he won't be suspended, so he could appear on Collision each and every week. So Ricky Starks is doing a good job being a heel. So got to give it to Starks. So, but good segment this was. And then we had the first match of the night. Tag team match. The Acclaimed, Max Caster and Anthony Bowens versus Iron Savages. Of course, Iron Savages, they were once known as Bear Country. This was Bear Boulder and Bear Bronson. And this was a decent tag team match here. Of course, Billy Gunn did not accompany the Acclaimed out there because, we all know Billy Gunn ended up leaving his boots in the ring, pretty much saying that, he's going to retire. So Billy Gunn wasn't out there. But the match got underway. We had the fans end up chanting for Billy Gunn. We had Bronson and Anthony Bowens end up delivering forearms to each other. Anthony Bowens ended up chopping Bronson, and Bowens ended up tagging in Caster. The Acclaimed then double teamed on Bronson with some elbows in the corner. Bronson then tagged in Boulder as Caster tagged back in Bowens. Bowens ended up chopping Boulder, and Bowens tagged Max Caster back in. Caster tried to lift Boulder up, but he couldn't. Caster then tagged in Bowens. Caster leapt off the top. Boulder ended up catching Caster. He ended up tossing both Caster and Bowens over his shoulders and slammed them down. And so AEW Collision went to commercial. So we had the picture-in-picture. So then, as AEW Collision came back from the commercial, Caster made the tag to Bowens. Bowens ended up chopping at Bronson and took him down with some more chops. Boulder was then tagged in. Caster came off the top, and we had Boulder end up catching Caster and slammed him down. Boulder ended up going for the cover on Bowens, but Bowens kicked out. So Bowens was down. Bronson was on the shoulders of Boulder, but he was dropped down by Bowens. Caster ended up tagging in. Caster picked up Bronson and slammed him down. So Jack Jameson came into the ring. But Jack Jameson was taken out, and the Acclaimed delivered a Scissor Me Timber on Jameson. So the Acclaimed end up following up with some double famoussers on Bronson. So they end up winning the match. The Acclaimed end up winning. Post-match, Caster got on the mic. He ended up saying that the best two-man team in the sport has returned. Caster ended up saying that this Wednesday on Dynamite, they are going to be wrestling again. Caster ended up having Billy Gunn's boots, and he held them up. He ended up saying that they can't be stopped to get to the top of the tag team division. Bowens then ended up saying that last week they got to say goodbye, but the fans didn't. They got to say goodbye to Billy Gunn, but of course the fans didn't get that chance. So Bowens ended up telling Greensboro to put up scissors for Billy to show how much they love him, and that the fans and the Acclaimed love Billy Gunn. So then we had the Acclaimed interacted with the fans, and pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a decent tag team match with the Acclaimed and Iron Savages. It was very weird not seeing, Billy Gunn accompany the Acclaimed out there. But, Billy Gunn, retired. So, hope Billy Gunn, enjoys, his retirement. And then we had Lexi Nair backstage. Lexi Nair ended up introducing Bullet Club Gold. Juice Robinson ended up saying that there is no one hotter than Bullet Club Gold. Jay White then ended up saying that this is the most elite version of the Bullet Club ever. Jay White ended up saying that there is a team of brothers that call themselves the Best Brother Tag Team. And then, of course, the Guns, Austin Colton Gunn, they ended up saying that they are the best. And on Wednesday, not to bring super kicks to a gunfight. So pretty much that was that. So then, as AEW Collision came back from the commercial, we had a women's tag team match. Kris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. They teamed up to take on Diamante and Mercedes Martinez. It's been a long while since we've seen Diamante on TV. But this was a solid women's match here. Match up starting with Kris Statlander and Diamante. They end up blocking up. Statlander end up turning her back to jaw at Mercedes Martinez. Diamante end up nailing Kris Statlander from behind. Statlander then picked up Diamante and walked over and tagged in Willow Nightingale. Diamante was taken out in the corner by Nightingale. Mercedes end up holding Diamante's hips to avoid being hit by Nightingale. Diamante then ended up kicking Nightingale. Nightingale then attempted to take out both Mercedes Martinez and Diamante. But of course, that was too much for Willow Nightingale to do. So Mercedes made a tag to Diamante, and both Mercedes and Diamante end up delivering a double drop kick to Willow Nightingale. Diamante ended up going for the cover, and Willow Nightingale ended up kicking out. So Collision went to the commercial. So as AEW Collision came back from the commercial, Nightingale was being double teamed by Diamante and Mercedes Martinez. So we had Willow Nightingale end up breaking the double clothesline attempt from Diamante and Martinez. Nightingale ended up nailing Diamante, and she was able to make the tag to Statlander. Statlander ended up taking down Mercedes Martinez and Diamante with some drop kicks. Statlander then picked up Diamante and shoved Diamante into Mercedes Martinez. So Nightingale and also Kris Statlander end up double teaming on both Diamante and Mercedes Martinez. Nightingale went up to the top rope. She was then pushed off by Diamante. So we had Diamante end up taking out Statlander, sent her to the outside. Mercedes Martinez picked up Diamante, tossed her over the rope, and took out both Kris Statlander and Nightingale. Nightingale ended up getting back into the ring, ended up dropping Diamante. Statlander was now in. She ended up dropping Diamante with a Fisherman's Buster. Mercedes Martinez then took out Kris Statlander from behind. Mercedes Martinez then rolled up Willow Nightingale. Diamante ended up pushing on Mercedes Martinez, who ended up grabbing the rope and got the pin. And the ref didn't even see that happen. So because of this, Diamante and Mercedes Martinez ended up winning the match. But overall, this was a solid women's match with Diamante, Mercedes Martinez, and Statlander and Nightingale. But, this was a, pretty good win for Mercedes Martinez and Diamante here. Like I said, we haven't seen Diamante on TV in a while. So I'm glad she got, the win here, since we haven't seen her on TV in a while. And then we saw Lexi Nair. Lexi Nair was backstage. She was talking to Toni Storm. Toni Storm ended up telling Lexi Nair that she doesn't know what she does, what Lexi Nair does. Toni Storm ended up saying that all the girls in the four-way match are all insecure little girls. So then Lexi Nair ended up asking Toni Storm about her losing to Hikaru Shida. So Toni Storm ended up telling Lexi Nair to shut up. And then Toni Storm ended up leaving. And pretty much that was basically that. Then we got a squash match. Samoa Joe was in action. He ended up taking on Andrew Everett. Joe got a big pop from the crowd there. They were chanting his name. Match got underway. We had the fans end up chanting, "Joe is going to kill you." So Joe ended up nailing Andrew Everett with a number of jabs. Everett ended up going down. Joe then tossed Everett to the corner, crushed him in the corner. Andrew Everett was down. Joe picked him up, nailed Everett in the gut with a knee. So Samoa Joe won the match. He ended up locking in the coquina clutch on Everett, and that was that. Easy win for Samoa Joe here. Post-match, Samoa Joe ended up grabbing the mic, and he ended up saying that he is the now and forever king of television. Joe ended up saying that he came tonight looking for the answer of a champion. He ended up saying that he met with the silence of a coward. He ended up saying that your real world champion is acting like a bitch now. Of course, he's talking about CM Punk. So Joe ended up saying that Punk doesn't seem talkative tonight. Joe then ended up saying that since he won't get what he wants, he will convince Punk for a match at All In. So pretty much that was basically what Joe had to say. But we'll like to see that match. Samoa Joe versus CM Punk at All In. Should be a very good match if confirmed. Oh, but that will be a banger there in London, in Wembley. And then we had Christian Cage end up coming out. Christian Cage came out along with Luchasaurus. Nigel McGuinness on commentary ended up calling Christian Cage Father of the Year, which that was funny. So, of course, Christian had the TNT Championship on his shoulder when he is not the TNT Champion. Luchasaurus is the TNT Champion. So why is Christian Cage still carrying the TNT Championship on him when he's not the champion? So Christian Cage and Luchasaurus made their way down to the ring. Christian had a mic in hand. So Christian tried to talk, and the fans started booing him. Christian ended up saying that he has to say this is the biggest family reunion he has been a part of. He ended up saying that all in North Carolina are all related. Christian then asked the fans to put down their hot dogs. He ended up saying they are second best to come out of North Carolina. He ended up saying that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. He then ended up saying that as far as pro wrestling, he is far more superior to Ric Flair. So the fans end up doing woo! Christian then ended up saying that as the TNT champion, we demand respect. And Christian, he's just great on the mic here. Funny stuff that, he's saying here. So Christian ended up saying that the fans and the wrestlers that are in the back wish they were him. Christian ended up saying, as of late, he is feeling disrespected by Darby Allin. He ended up telling Darby that as long as the TNT title is in his hands, Darby will never have the TNT Championship again. Christian then ended up asking Darby if he wants to be a hero so bad, then come after the title. So that brought out Arn Anderson. Arn Anderson came out with his son, Brock Anderson. Arn and Brock are back on TV. So they end up interrupting Christian. Arn Anderson ended up saying that it is enough. He ended up saying that Greensboro knows the Andersons. Arn then ended up saying that Greensboro is horseman country. He ended up saying that he wants to point out something to the Sea Monster, that he is the champion, and not Christian. Of course, he was referring to Luchasaurus, of course. Luchasaurus is the TNT champion and not Christian. So Christian then ended up saying that there will be no more open challenges. He ended up asking Arn if he wants to step in the ring. And if he steps in the ring, he would make an exception. Arn Anderson ended up telling Christian that if it was 20 years ago, he would slip in there and spine bust his ass and win the title. Brock Anderson then came into the ring, and we had a match. Luchasaurus versus Brock Anderson for the TNT Championship. So the match started off with Luchasaurus nailing Brock Anderson with a big boot to his face. Luchasaurus then ended up chopping Brock Anderson, sending him to the outside. Arn Anderson then ended up chasing Christian around the ring. Luchasaurus then picked up Brock Anderson, dropped him hard down to the canvas, and then Collision went to commercial. So then, as Collision came back from the commercial, Brock Anderson attempted to come back with some right hands to Luchasaurus, and we had Luchasaurus end up choke slamming Brock Anderson. Luchasaurus then followed up with a bulldog to Brock Anderson. Luchasaurus ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Luchasaurus ended up winning the match, retaining the TNT Championship. Post-match, Darby Allin was in the ring, and he had taken out Luchasaurus from behind with his skateboard. Darby Allin then grabbed the mic. He kept saying that Luchasaurus has been around for 65 million years. So Darby ended up asking Luchasaurus if he has ever had a skateboard up his ass. So Darby Allin then ended up challenging Christian to a match next week on Collision, to which Christian ended up accepting. So Darby ended up telling Luchasaurus that at All In, he will be the face of TNT once again. So there you go. That was what Darby Allin had to say. After him and Sting's match with the Mogul Embassy, era Fox and Swerve Strickland, the tag team coffin match at All In, he's having his eye on the TNT Championship again. But overall, this was just a very meh match between Luchasaurus and Brock Anderson. And then we had Tony Schiavone. As AEW Collision came back from the commercial, Tony Schiavone was in the ring. Tony Schiavone introduced Powerhouse Hobbs. Hobbs came out. He had a book in his hand, and it was the Book of Hobbs. Tony Schiavone ended up bringing up last week's Collision with QT offering gifts, and that Hobbs ended up walking out of that. So Hobbs ended up saying that an opportunity presented itself. Chicago, All Out. Hobbs ended up saying that there is always someone distracting him. He ended up saying that he took his ass back to the bay and grabbed the Book of Hobbs. Hobbs then ended up saying that he doesn't want anyone's help. He ended up saying that the next chapter in the book is named Redemption. Hobbs ended up asking how is he supposed to redeem himself after losing the TNT Championship and also a Battle Royal. Hobbs ended up saying that he needs to call on the Redeemer. So Hobbs called out Miro. Miro ended up coming out. Miro was then attacked from behind by both Aaron Solo and Nick Comoroto. Hobbs ended up looking on as Miro got into the ring. Miro was dropped by both Aaron Solo and Nick Comoroto. Miro got up. Hobbs picked up Miro, dropped him with a huge spine buster. Hobbs ended up dropping the Book of Hobbs on Miro, and he walked out of the ring. Miro ended up beginning to recover, and Miro was just pissed off. He had a pissed off look on his face after being spine busted by Hobbs. So there you go. That was the segment, but set up for Miro and Powerhouse Will Hobbs. So that should be a good match there. And then the commentary team, of course, Ian Riccaboni and Nigel McGuinness, they ended up running down the card for Dynamite on Wednesday, which is going to be Fight for the Fallen. And they remind us that Fight for the Fallen on Wednesday, all proceeds will go to the Maui Food Bank, which are families affected by the Maui wildfires out there. Very sad. Prayers are with the people in Maui there. Just sad time there. The wildfires, crazy there. Just prayers are with them. Prayers are with the people there. And then we had JR, Jim Ross. And JR joined commentary for the main event here. with Ian Riccaboni and Nigel McGuinness. JR ended up making his way down. JR ended up having some travel issues coming to Greensboro tonight for AEW Collision to make it there. He ended up tweeting out that there was multiple delays on his American Airlines plane to CLT before driving to Greensboro. He tweeted that out. So JR made it on time, to Greensboro for AEW Collision. So pretty much, JR, it says in the article that he has also been late a time or two, and sometimes not even his fault. Travel delays, could happen. So really glad that JR got to Greensboro for AEW Collision, with the travel issues that he was going through. So we had the House of Black end up coming out. Ian Riccaboni on commentary ended up saying that the House of Black are the longest reigning trios champions. So House of Black came out. We have Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. Of course, congrats to Buddy Matthews on getting engaged to Rhea Ripley. So congrats to the both of them. So, this was the main event. The House of Black versus CMFTR, CM Punk, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler. AEW World Trios Championship on the line. Very good match this was. Awesome match. This, in my opinion, was the best match on the entire show, in my opinion. So we had CMFTR end up coming out. We had Harwood and Wheeler, they came out first, and then CM Punk came out. Punk got a mixed reaction. There was some chants for him. There was some boos. But the match ended up starting. Cash Wheeler and Buddy Matthews started off the match. Cash Wheeler tagged in Punk, which got boos from the crowd and some chants of Punk's name. So, still mixed reaction for Punk. So Punk and Buddy Matthews end up locking up. Buddy Matthews ended up sending Punk into the corner. And of course we had, "Let's go, Buddy, let's go," Punk chants from the crowd. Punk had Buddy Matthews in a headlock. Buddy Matthews then ended up sending Punk against the ropes. Buddy Matthews then ended up chopping CM Punk, to which Punk ended up tagging in Cash Wheeler. So both Cash Wheeler and Buddy Matthews ended up locking up. Cash Wheeler took down Buddy Matthews, and Buddy Matthews ended up getting back up as Cash Wheeler was doing some jumping jacks. Cash Wheeler attempted to lock up Buddy Matthews, who ended up breaking the hold, but we had Buddy Matthews being taken down by an arm drag from Cash Wheeler. Dax Harwood ended up tagging in. He ended up chopping Buddy Matthews and dropped him down. Dax then delivered a leg drop to Buddy Matthews. He ended up going for the cover. Buddy Matthews ended up kicking out. Buddy Matthews then tagged in Brody King. Brody King ended up nailing Dax with some huge chops to Dax's chest. Brody King then sent Dax to the corner, continued to chop him hard. Dax ended up ducking a big knee from Brody King, and Dax ended up nailing Brody with some chops in the corner. Dax then tagged in Cash Wheeler, and FTR ended up double teaming on Brody King. They ended up sending Brody to the outside with a double drop kick. Malachi Black then ended up holding back Brody King, ended up calming him down a bit. Punk was then tagged in. Malachi Black was tagged in. So both Punk and Malachi walked slowly in circles. Punk then blocked and kneed from Malachi Black. Punk ended up nailing Malachi Black in his low back. Malachi then took down Punk, and Malachi then hit FTR off the apron. So Punk then ended up sitting down in the ring, staring at Malachi Black. Malachi Black then sat down and stared at Punk. Good spot there, where you had just Punk and Malachi just, sitting down, just staring at each other. So then Buddy Matthews came in, and then Brody King. And so CMFTR and the House of Black were all in the ring, and we had a brawl between these teams. And then Collision went to commercial, which I really liked that little brawl from both of these teams here, especially the aerial shot that you saw of all these guys in the ring. So then as Collision came back from the commercial, Dax Harwood ended up chopping Buddy Matthews. They were exchanging blows. Buddy Matthews ended up dropping Dax with a DDT. Brody King was then tagged in. He chopped Dax Harwood hard, and Brody then ended up grabbing Dax Harwood's legs, ended up chopping him again. Malachi Black was then tagged in. He ended up dropping Dax with a huge chop. So Malachi ended up going for the cover on Dax. Dax kicked out. Malachi Black then ended up kicking Dax as he ended up dropping to his back. Malachi Black then tagged in Brody King. He ended up tossing Dax Harwood, picked him up, and chopped him hard. Brody then ended up tagging in Malachi Black. He ended up nailing Dax with a huge kick to his face. Dax ended up coming back with a huge DDT to Malachi. Dax tagged in Punk, and then Buddy Matthews ended up tagging in. So Buddy Matthews ended up getting taken down by Punk with some shoulder tackles. Punk then ended up trying to go for the GTS on Buddy Matthews, but it got broken up by Malachi Black. Punk then tried to hit the GTS on Buddy Matthews again, but it got countered. Julia Hart ended up getting on the apron to make the distraction. Punk was on the top rope. Malachi Black ended up dropping Punk off the top rope because the ref's back was turned. Brody King ended up getting tagged in. He ended up nailing Punk in the corner. So Brody King ended up sending Punk to the outside as Collision went to commercial again. So then as Collision came back from the commercial, Malachi Black ended up kicking Punk in the back of his head. Malachi Black ended up taking Brody King. He ended up hitting Punk with some knife edge chops. Brody then suplexed Punk and tagged in Buddy Matthews. Buddy ended up going for the cover on Punk, to which Punk ended up kicking out. So you had Buddy Matthews had Punk down on the canvas in a headlock. Punk got back up, attempted to fight his way to make a tag. Buddy Matthews ended up nailing Punk with a run knee. Punk then ended up hitting Buddy Matthews with a GTS. Malachi Black ended up pulling Buddy Matthews out of the ring. Punk made the tag to Cash Wheeler. Cash Wheeler ended up dropping Malachi Black with a big power slam. And then Dax Harwood ended up coming in. He ended up sending Malachi Black and Buddy Matthews to the outside. FTR ended up sending Brody to the outside. Cash then ended up diving between the ropes, taking out the House of Black on the outside, which was great. Brody ended up getting back in the ring, and Cash Wheeler ended up delivering a huge bulldog to Brody King. So at the end of the match, we had Brody King end up nailing Dax Harwood with a spinning lariat. He ended up going for the cover, and there you go. The House of Black ended up winning the match, and they still retain the AEW World Trios Championship. Post-match, House of Black and Julia Hart stood tall in the ring. Punk was shown on the floor trying to recover, and that was how AEW Collision went off the air. Really, I'm glad that the House of Black retained the titles. Just Buddy Matthews and Brody King and Malachi Black are just absolutely great. But overall, it was an awesome, good match. In my opinion, it was the only best match of the night on Collision. But overall, very mid Collision show this was tonight, in my opinion. But anyways, that's it for my review of AEW Collision. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.